ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताः स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Bhagavad Gita is the Tatparyam of Veda. What is the meaning of Tatparyam? The very summary, the very essence of Veda, Vedanta. Now let us take Veda and Vedanta as one. Sometimes we use the word Veda, sometimes the word Vedanta may be used, but Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the Tatparyam, the Veda Artha, the meaning of what Veda is trying to tell us. Tatparyam of the Vedanta, Samanvaya. Samanvaya means the summary of the entire Vedanta is in Bhagavad Gita. Now, Bhagavad Gita is giving the vision of Veda. What is this vision of Veda? Veda has a different vision. Vedanta has a different vision for us. According to the vision of Vedanta, it's a very, very big vision. It's a wholesome vision. And according to this vision of Vedanta, a jiva, that is I, you, and all of us, it says, Vedanta says, my vision about you, O jiva, you are not a limited jiva, you're not a perishable jiva, you're not a changing jiva all the time. It is only your anatma, body, mind, sense complex which is changing continuously, but you are that nitya, shuddha, buddha, mukta atma, which has been described in the second chapter. Now, Veda also knows that this vision is not something very easy for all of us to fathom, to catch this vision, because we are not used to this vision. What is our vision? I'm a limited being. I'm the one who's constantly changing. I'm a karta. I'm a bhokta. I'm the sufferer. I'm suffering all my karmas, papas, punyas of all my karmas. This is my vision of myself. but the Veda has a different vision for me. It says, you are the Atma, you are that Brahman, and you, the Atma and Brahman alone is Satyam. That is the absolute truth, the Paramarthika Satyam. And everything else, the Jagat, all the names and forms of the Jagat, including your body, mind, sense complex, is Mithya. Brahma Satyam or Atma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaipa Naparaha. The Jiva, you are not really different from that Paramarthika Satyam Atma. This is the vision of Vedas. This is the vision of Vedanta. And then Veda also knows that it is not easy for us to understand this vision, which is a very, very subtle vision. And therefore, Veda also gives us the upaya or the means or the way to understand this vision. See, giving a vision is not enough, but how to actually acquire that vision, how to know that vision, what should I do to really understand what the Veda is saying, what is the tatparyam of Veda. For that, Veda itself, Vedanta itself has to give us the upaya, what is called as the moksha prapti upaya. So when Veda says that you are that moksha swarupa, mukta swarupa atma, then the same Veda gives us the upaya also to understand this vision. And what is the upaya of the Vedas? The upaya is a two-step approach. The first step is called as the karma yoga approach, because when this vision, such a whole vision, such an unfathomable vision, a vision of Veda which I'm just not able to understand where to start and what it means, Veda says that first you prepare yourself for knowing what this vision is. May you first prepare your intellect, clear it of all the doshas, clear it of all the malas. Let there be sufficient chitta shuddhi and chitta naishchalyam, so that your buddhi, your mind is capable of at least understanding what Veda is trying to say, to understand the words of the Vedas, to understand the tatparyam of Vedas, to at least behold that vision. May you be prepared. And how should you be prepared? May you live a life of karma yoga. That is the first step. And then the same Veda says that this karma yoga is only a jnana prapti upaya. It only going to make your intellect capable of going to the next step. And what is the next step? The next step is to expose myself to this vision of Vedanta and listen to the Guru. Guru Mukhena Shastra Adhyanam, Shastra Shravanam, Guru Mukhena Shastra Shravanam. This is what is called as the Jnana Yoga. And the Jnana Yoga is possible only for a person who has prepared himself with adequate Karma Yoga, which is what is called as the Jnana Prapti Upaya. And in the third chapter, Krishna dealt in detail about Karma Yoga. What did he say about Karma Yoga? I'll just summarize briefly what we studied in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita called as the Karma Yoga. Now, Karma Yoga is doing my Swadharma, my Swakarma with the attitude of Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Now, what is the meaning of Swadharma? What is the meaning of Swakarma? As I said earlier, in the Vedic period, when the Varna Ashrama system or Varna Ashrama dharma or Varna Ashrama Vyavastha was very, very clear, in such at those times, it was very easy for people to follow the Varnashrama dharma and offer one's Swadharma and Swakarma as one's offering to Ishvara. But now we are finding that such clear-cut Varnashrama dharma, such clear-cut Varnashrama bheda vyavastha is not there. So what do we do? Ultimately, what is the purpose of Karma Yoga? To dilute my ragadveshas, to make my mind clear enough, pure enough to understand this vision of the Vedas. And therefore, Krishna says that may you do your Swadharma and Swakarma, which means that wherever you are, whatever role you are playing, in whichever place you are, whatever is your capacity, in that role, in that capacity, what you have to do, may you do that with the attitude of Ishvara Arpanam. Ishvaraya idam maya kartavyam. Not for my ragadveshas, not prompted by my ragadveshas, but that this is something to be done in this situation. Maya idam kartavyam iti. At the same time, this maya idam kartavyam karma should not bind me, nor should the results of this maya idam kartavyam karma phala should not bind me. Therefore, what do? I have to offer all my karma to Ishvara with Ishwararpana buddhi and accept whatever the results of the actions are as Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. And this is something which is going to, over a period of time, clear my mind of ragadveshas. I'm no longer under the spell of ragadveshas, and it gives me jnana prapti yogyata. I have the yogyata for jnana prapti. And to make it still easier, in today's world, in today's lifestyle, Pancha Mahayajnas were talked about. In the session of the 7th October, I have very clearly dealt with what is Pancha Mahayajna, and in our routine daily lives, it is really not difficult for us to do whatever we are doing as one of these yogas, one of these Pancha Mahayogas. And this Pancha Mahayoga way of life is nothing but Karma Yoga. A yajna way of life is nothing but Karma Yoga, because in a yajna or in Panchamaha yajnas, what we are doing is we are having a reverential attitude towards Ishvara or Bhagwan, and all the functionaries of the natural laws of the universe we consider as devatas. So we have what is called as the, worshipfulness or reverence to Ishvara. This is reverence number one. Secondly, yajna way of life or karma yoga, including which is nothing but Panchamaha yoga, involves what? Involves contribution. I contribute to the whole. As a samashti, I contribute to the whole. My ragadveshas are less. I am able to contribute more than being a consumer. I try to be more of a contributor than a consumer. I consume. It's not possible for me not to consume at all. I consume. But I consume what is absolutely necessary for me. And then what I don't need, I do not use. I contribute to the ecology. I contribute to the harmony of the entire universe. Then the third thing is sharing. Sharing what I have, sharing the resources of Ishvara, because everything is given to me by Ishvara. So sharing is also what is called as a yajna way of life, which I am doing in all the Panchamaha yajnas. Now, what is happening here? This yajna way of life is going to dilute my ragadveshas, and it makes me go one step further and higher to expose my intellect to the vision of the Vedas, to the vision of Vedanta. Now, Arjuna asked a question. If this is your mata, Krishna, it's not Krishna's personal mata. He says it is what has been talked about from eons, in the sense when Prajapati created this entire universe, he created this universe with the attitude of yajna in all the individuals, and he created the situations so that this lifestyle of a yajna could be lived by everybody, and that would become a wish fulfilling cow. Kamadhuk, it was talked about. I'm not going to go into each and every verse because we have already dealt with it in detail. So, this yajna way of life, karma yoga way of life, is something which is naturally inherent, and we are born with this particular capacity. And when we are living this lifestyle of karma yoga, a yajna way of life, our ragadveshas are not going to hold us by our neck. We don't come under the spell of ragadveshas. And when Arjuna asks, who is it? What is it? Is there a devil inside me, or is there a devil outside which is going to make me do things which are really not your mata? What is that thing? Balavad, it makes me to go after something which is not right for me, where I live a life of selfishness. What is it? And then Krishna answered in the last portion of the 3rd chapter. He said that it is nothing but Kama Yesha Krodha Yesha. Hey Arjuna, this Kama, this Krodha, which you are very well aware of, it is that actually which is really having 3 places where it exists in your Anatma: the Indriyas, the mind, and the Buddhi. But Arjuna, may you understand that all the action, Manasa Sankalpya, Buddhya Nishchitya, Indriyaihi Karyam Karoti Purusha. So this is what is meant by the doing or execution of an action. So where is the sankalpa of action happening? In the mind. Where is the decision of going for a particular action is happening? In the buddhi. What is executing the action? The sense organs. Therefore, Arjuna, where is this happening? Where are the ragadveshas situated? They are situated nothing but in the anatma body mind sense complex. But you, the Atma, is absolutely free from the ragadveshas, absolutely free from the karmas, absolutely free from the karma phalas. Therefore, you are the akarta, abhokta, asanga Atma. And Krishna says that this is what I have talked to you in the entire 3rd chapter, Arjuna. Now, from the next chapter, I'm going to talk about what is that knowledge, what is that vision of Vedas that is trying to tell me that I'm not a limited jiva, but I am that unlimited, nitya, shashvata, okay, and Satya Rupi, Jnana Rupi, Satchitananda Rupa Atma Tvam Asi Iti. This is the vision of Vedas. This is the vision of Vedanta. And here in the 4th chapter, there is a prominence of this knowledge. Jnana Pradhana chapter. See, we must understand one thing, that in Bhagavad Gita, no chapter is totally dedicated to either karma or to jnana. In Bhagavad Gita, there are karma pradhana chapters and there are jnana pradhana chapters. And this 4th chapter is called as the Jnana Yoga. That is the chapter dealing with predominantly this knowledge. What is this knowledge? This is the knowledge of what the Vedas want to convey to us. This knowledge is the vision of Vedas. This knowledge is to be attained only after a person has diluted his ragadveshas, has got enough of chitta shuddhi, by following a lifestyle of karma yoga for sufficient period of time, and then exposing himself in a proper way, and exposing to the shastra, exposing himself to what? To the shastra. Guru mukhena shastra shravanam. It has to be consistent. It has to be sustained. It is not something that we can just listen for a few classes or a few sessions and then don't bother about. No, that won't happen. This kind of a knowledge is something where we have to sustain this interest, we have to sustain this commitment, and we have to be exposed to this shastra guru mukhena over years and years and years. And ultimately we have to hold on to this jnanam till the vision of the Vedas is totally understood by us. What is the vision of the Vedas? Aham Satyam, Aham Atma Asmi, Aham Akarta, Abhokta, Nitya, Atma, Aham Asmi Iti. Until this vision of the Vedas is absolutely, very, very clearly understood by me, I have to hold on to the Shastra. I cannot leave the Shastra. Shastra means what? Vedanta, Vedas. I cannot leave the guru who is actually wielding the shastra, and therefore I have to have consistency and sustainability of being with this, being with karma yoga, being with jnana yoga. It is not easy to change the vision of something. See, a paradigm shift we call. in the modern language. A paradigm shift is not that easy. Listening to Vedanta once, listening to Bhagavad Gita once or twice, that's not going to change the vision that I have, the limited vision, the wrong vision that I have. It can't even be called as the vision. Vision is something which is right. Satyam, Ritam, that is the vision of Vedas, and that which never changes. And the vision of Vedas is something which I can have only after I have gone through the entire process of karma yogena chitta shuddhi, upasana yogena chitta naishalyam, jnana yogena jnanam, jnanattu eva kaivalyam. This sopana has to be followed consistently for a long period of time. It's not just a question of a few weeks or a few years. It is a lifetime's effort and maybe lives time's effort. Even at the end of this life, I cannot be 100% sure that I have understood the vision of Vedas, and it has to go on. So now, in the finishing this, what is the, what was the summary of the third chapter, which I have given very very briefly. Now we'll go to the fourth chapter, which is called as the Jnana Yoga. In this Jnana Yoga, which is a Jnana Pradhana chapter, Jnana Pradhana Adhyaya, Krishna wants to now tell Arjuna that, look, Arjuna, what I'm talking to you about, this Lokesmin Vividha Nishta, that is Karma Yogena Yoginam, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, what I told you about the two lifestyles, and Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Moksha. This particular thing and the knowledge of Karma Yoga, the knowledge or the vision of Vedas is not something which I have invented down. No, even Krishna is following what is told in the Vedas. Krishna is also absolutely true to the Vedas and Vedanta. Therefore, Krishna wants to tell Arjuna here, Arjuna, don't take this very, very lightly. What I'm telling you now is not what I have invented. It is not my matam, though Krishna says many times, me matam, this is my view. Krishna's view is Veda's view. Krishna's vision is Vedanta's vision. It is not different from that. Krishna is not saying anything other than what the Vedas are saying. So Krishna now wants to tell Arjuna that, look, whatever I am giving you and going to give you in the next a few hundred verses is something which is not today's knowledge, but this knowledge as Ishvara, I have given this knowledge eons and eons ago at the time of this creation itself. So the first verse starts with Krishna telling Arjuna that, hey Arjuna, this knowledge is something which I gave in the beginning of the creation itself to two branches. I gave this knowledge to the Kshatriya branch. At the same time, Dakshinamurti, as the very Shiva or Parameshwara, gave this knowledge to the Brahmana Parampara through the Sanakadi rishis. But here, since Krishna is a Kshatriya, Arjuna is Kshatriya, and they are now talking in the battlefield. Now, Krishna is going to talk about how this knowledge started, where it started from the Kshatriya point of view. Like he says, this is what I gave in the beginning of creation, at the very start of creation, to the entire Kshatriya Parampara. And what does he say here? Let's go to the verse 1 of chapter 4. Imam vivas Shri Bhagavanuvacha imam vivasvate yogam प्रोक्तवानहमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह manurikshvakave pravit. So Arjuna, this knowledge is parampara praptam. Any such knowledge is a parampara. Any knowledge is a parampara ultimately. It could be a Laukika Jnanam, it could be Vaidika Jnanam, it could be Paramarthika Atma Jnanam. Any Jnanam is parampara. It flows from the Guru to the Shishya like Jnana Ganga. Anything that flows is the one which is kept alive. When The jnanam does not flow down in the parampara of Guru and Shishya. Guru Shishya parampara, it does not flow down. Such a knowledge becomes stagnant. Like a flowing river, it does not flow, it becomes stagnant. So he says, Hey Arjuna, imam yogam, this knowledge of karma yoga and the jnana yoga, which I am going to talk about. I have already talked to you about this jnanam in the 12th to the 25th verse of the second chapter, and that only I am going to expand now in this chapter. And therefore, Arjuna, may you understand that this knowledge, this vision of the Vedas has been given by me to whom? Vivaswan. Vivaswan means sun or Surya Bhagavan. To Surya Bhagavan, I have given this particular knowledge. Why is Surya called Vivaswan? The one who nurtures, the one who protects, the one who helps in the growth of the jivas. He's called as Vivaswan. And I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan in the beginning of this creation itself. And what kind of a yoga is it? What kind of a knowledge is it? Aham proktavan avyayam. Avyayam means what? This knowledge which is going to flow forever, and this knowledge which is never going to anytime stagnate or get lost. This is an avyaya jnanam. Why? Because it is given directly by Parameshwara. It is the Vedic knowledge which is a parampara which has come every creation. There is nityatvam of Vedas. Pravaha Nityatvam, it is called as. The Vedas, this knowledge of Vedas and Vedanta come along with the creation in every creation. Therefore, this knowledge is something which cannot be lost, Arjuna. This has come from the very beginning of every creation, and it lasts still the pralayam takes place, and it is I who gave this knowledge. Just see here, it is I who gave this knowledge to the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas, starting from Vivaswan. And then what did Vivaswan do? Vivaswan Manave Praha. Vivaswan gave this knowledge, transferred this knowledge, Parampara Taya, to Vaivasvata Manu, his son and disciple Vaivasvata Manu. Manu means the Moola Karana Purusha of Manavas, Manu. So it is this Manu, Vaivasvata Manu, the son of Vivaswan. Vivaswan passed it on, Paramparataya. And then what happened? Vivaswan Manave Praha, then Manuhu Ikshvakave Abravit. Ikshvaku, Surya Vamsha, one of the earliest kings of Surya Vamsha. Kshatriya. He's giving us the Kshatriya Parampara. So I gave it to Vivaswan Surya. He gave it to his son and disciple Manu. And Manu passed it on to Ikshvaku, the Surya Vamsha Kshatriya. And then from there it came along various links in the Kshatriyas. And today what it is. And I am telling you only about this Kshatriya chain because we both are. You will understand better when I talk about all these people because you have known them. But then at the same time, Dakshinamurti gave this knowledge to Sanaka, Sanat, Sujata, Sanakanandana, Sanakadi Maharishis, and that became a parampara of Brahmana parampara. So this yoga has simultaneously gone in Kshatriya parampara as well as Brahmana parampara, and it has been flowing continuously. And then Krishna says here, Yevam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. Hey Parantapa, Arjuna, the scorcher of enemies, Parantapa, hey Arjuna. And this knowledge, this Vedantic vision, this Vedic vision is what? Parampara praptam imam yogam. This is parampara praptam. It is something which goes on flowing like a pravaha from guru to the shishya, next to the next shishya. So this is the knowledge which has come paramparateya. It is not an andha parampara. It is not something which I have just thought of it and imagined now and invented something and talked to you. No, what knowledge I am giving you is the Vedic vision which has come from the beginning of the creation. And there, what happened? All these rajas and rishis, they were rishis also. Those who received this knowledge, the kshatriya, the great kings, were rishis, rajarshis, those who received this knowledge. And they taught this knowledge to their children, sons, and their students also, to their shishyas also. But what happened to it? Unfortunately, saha, that means that knowledge, what happened? Kalena iha mahata yogaha nashtaha. Iha mahata yogaha kalena nashtaha. Over a period of time, this yoga or this knowledge started getting a little bit of stagnated. Stagnated in the sense, nashtaha here means it is not a question of loss. This knowledge can never get lost. No knowledge can ever get lost. But then, unfortunately, this knowledge can go to the hands of people who don't deserve it. It can go to all the people who are, adharmis. Okay, it can go to their hands. Like if it goes to the hands of Duryodhana, if it goes to the hands of people like Bhishma and Drona who are supposed to be dharmishtas, but still then this kind of a yoga in their hands, what happened to that? They ultimately supported adharma. There may be other reasons for that. Why did Bhishma, Drona, and Kripa, why did they support adharma when they were such dharmishtas? There are many other reasons for that, which is not the context of what we are talking about. That we can talk some other time as to why did they do that. That is a very different question here. But kalena, over a period of time, this particular yoga got into the wrong hands. This knowledge got into the wrong hands and it did not go paramparataya. And the way it had to be taken, it was not taken up. So, nashta iva nashtaha. Bhagwan Shankaracharya in his Bhasha says that this knowledge can never be lost because it's nityam. It is, this knowledge is something nityam jnanam idam. So it cannot be lost. Nashta iva, as if it is lost because it completely got hidden and it got misinterpreted in the hands of wrong people, and therefore it was as if it was, lost. Therefore now, Arjuna, Sayevayam maya tedhya yogah proktah puratanaha bhaktossi me sakha cheti rahasyam hyetaduttamam. But hey Arjuna, today what I am telling you, te adhya, now today what I am telling you is that very knowledge, puratanaha, that very knowledge, old, proktaha, that which was told, that which was given earlier itself to all these people as I described. And today I am going to give this knowledge to you. Okay. Why am I giving it to you? Bhakto sime sakha cha iti. You are my bhakta and you are sakha. Now, let us see now. Let's have just imagine a kind of a dialogue or a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Of course, in this battlefield, it cannot happen. But then it is possible that Arjuna may ask Krishna and say that, Krishna, you have been my friend for so long, right? We have been together in the last 13 years in my Vanavasa and Ajnatavasa when I have been preparing for this war. It's not that you are not there with us. You are there with us all the time. You are really giving us all the instructions and you try to even go as an emissary for the Sandhi. All this is there. But in those 13 years when I had so much of free time, Krishna, why didn't you give this knowledge to me? Today, when I'm in such a confused state of mind and in the middle of the battlefield, when all the conches are blown by both the sides, everybody is ready with their ayudhas. At this time, you're telling me this is a Puratana Yoga, Puratana Jnanam, which I had given earlier, and I am going to give it Sakhasi me, you are my Sakha. Was I not your Sakha in the last 13 years when we were in the forest? Why did you not give me that at that time? Now, Krishna has two answers for that. Number one, he says, Rahasyam hyetad uttamam. This is a rahasya knowledge. What is the meaning of rahasya? Secret. We have to understand that there are two types of secrets. Okay, a secret which is intentionally kept a secret from others. This is one type of secret. Another type of secret is it is open to everybody, but nobody understands what it is. It still remains a secret. And Vedas or this knowledge, Vedanta, this knowledge which Krishna talks about is a second type of secret. It is open to all of us. It is available to all of us, but still, without the proper preparation of the mind, without the guru, without the exposure to the Shastras, this knowledge is not available to us. Means what? Though it is there open, it is as though a secret. We have not understood it. So it is a secret, correct? So it is the second type of secret is this knowledge. First type of secret is what? Where definitely intentionally something is kept secret. Now we have a place called Chidambaram. You must be knowing that place. In Chidambaram, there is no idol or deity. In Chidambaram, the space itself is worshipped. Now what happens? During the puja, okay, when the curtains are drawn, all the people are waiting, and the curtain is opened by the pujari and the arati is done, and all of us are looking where this deity is, where this idol is. Okay, you don't see anything. The arati is done to that, unseen, unfathomable space is worshipped as Brahman. That Brahman which is not objectified, that Ishvara which is present in the form of space, Chit Ambaram, that which is in the form of space where consciousness Rupi, where the space itself is Ambaram, for whom, it is shown there. And when the curtain is opened, I realize that there is nothing there. So this is the secret. So here, these two types of secrets we have, and Krishna says that this knowledge is the second type of secret because though it is available, even if you are a scholar, if you have all the books of Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads and everything, if you don't have the Karma Yoga attitude and Chitta Shuddhi, if you don't have a proper study of Veda properly, systematically, through a guru, this knowledge remains a secret to you. Therefore, hey Arjuna, this is Rahasyam and Uttamam. And there is one more aspect. It is said that this Rahasyam knowledge should not be given unless it is asked for. Unless the person has the burning desire to know, unless the person is a mumukshu and really wants to know and goes to a guru and literally asks for this knowledge, prays for this knowledge, till then this knowledge is not given at all. It's not like these days where, the guru is willing to give and the listeners are not willing to listen. It was not like that. This knowledge was never given unless it was asked for. Why? If you want the knowledge, it is such a uttamam avyayam jnanam. Unless a person has a value for it, unless it is asked for, if it is given, it is completely lost. It loses its importance. So therefore, hey Arjuna, number one, it is secret. Number two, you could have asked me. You knew that I was something other than just your friend, but you didn't ask me for it. Without your asking, how can I give you this knowledge? But you asked me here in the middle of this battlefield, Shishyasteham Shatimam Tvam Prapannam, you said, and you said, all I'm confused. Dharma Samhuda Chetasa. I'm completely confused. I surrender to you, Lord. Tell me that which is Shreya to me. Tell me that which is going to release me from this bondage. You asked me when? You asked me now. You took me as your teacher or guru. You surrendered to me as a Shishya now. And you never asked for this knowledge earlier. So why should I have given it to you at that time? I mean, this is just an imaginary conversation that could have happened. We have to say, so this is rahasyam hetaduttamam. Now you are not only my sakha, but you are my bhakta, because you have surrendered to me and asked for this knowledge. Therefore, this is what I am going to give you. Now, there is a possibility that Arjuna is already confused, right? He doesn't know what to do, he's already confused. And Arjuna may be feeling that, hey Krishna, just because I'm confused, don't take me for a ride. You are telling me that you gave this knowledge to Vivaswan eons ago at the time of creation. And you're telling me you are giving me this knowledge now because I'm your Sakha and I'm your Bhakta. As far as I know, you and me were almost born almost at the same time. You and me were contemporaries. How can you say that you are the same one who gave this knowledge millions of years ago to Vivaswan? Just because I'm confused, are you trying to confuse me more, Krishna? Are you trying to make fun of me? What is this? What are you trying to tell me? That is the question of Arjuna in the next verse. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयां त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति. Krishna, your janma happened now recently. Aparam bhavatah janma. Aparam means much later. Almost very recently you were born. Param janma vivasvatah. Surya Bhagavan Vivaswan has been there when the creation took place from then. Okay? Katham yetad vijaniyam. How can I understand this? What is the secret that you're telling me? How am I supposed to understand this, that Tvam Adau Proktavaniti? You who is talking to me here now, whose Janma is, as far as you know, very recent, how do I understand when you say I gave this very knowledge to Vivaswan millions of years ago? Here we have to understand that Krishna is talking as Bhagavan, as Ishvara here. Krishna is not talking as Mr. Krishna who was born on an Ashtami day. He is not that Krishna. Here Krishna is talking as an avatara. This question of Arjuna is a seed question for Krishna to say something about the avatars. So these few verses which are going to come till the 9th verse, that is up till the end of 8th verse, there is a little bit of deviation from the main topic of Jnana Yoga, where Krishna is going to talk about what is an avatara and what is he as Krishna here he is doing now. As Ishvara, it was the same Ishvara who gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, and now today as Krishna I am standing before you, I am that Ishvara who has manifested in this body mind sense complex which you call Krishna. This is what he wants to answer Arjuna. So Arjuna, who's already a mass of confusion, now he's saying, how am I supposed to understand this, Krishna? Recently you're born and you say you gave this knowledge to Vivaswan so many millions of years ago. Now Krishna is going to answer this question of Arjuna. And he says here, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapa. Hey Arjuna, you have also had many janmas before. That means you have embodied yourself in different body mind sense complexes many times before. Millions of janmas you have had. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava. Yours or you have also had many janmas before. At the same time, I have also had. Here Janma means I have also appeared many times in different body, mind, sense complexes. You do not know any of them, but I know. You do not know what you were in the last life. You do not know what you were in 2 lives before this. Though you are the same Jiva, the same mind, the same sense complex, the same traveler Jiva who has embodied itself in various body, mind, sense complexes. You do not know what your previous Janma was. But hey Arjuna, I being Ishvara, I have manifested also in different body, mind, sense complexes, but then I know all of them. When did I take a particular body, mind, sense complex? And you do not know any of your previous janmas. Why is it so? Because Arjuna, you have a limited mind, and your mind and buddhi is full of doshas, and therefore you do not remember any of your previous janmas. And for you, for a jiva, it is a janma. Whereas for me, for Ishvara, it is not being born, it is an avatara. Here, let us take a little time to understand what is the difference between a jiva being born and an avatara appearing. A jiva's janma is because of the incomplete karmas. The karma phalas are pending. Lot of sanchita karmas are there. Prarabdha karma is fructifying. So avashaha, helplessly, a jiva to work out the karmas out of prarabdha, out of ignorance that I am the karta bhokta, which has led to all this sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, helplessly a jiva falls into janma, literally falls. Okay, patadam it is. Okay, whereas for Bhagavan, it is avataranam, it is a descent. What is the difference between a descent and a patanam? A patanam is where I have no control, where I fall, how I fall. Whereas avataranam or a descent is taking, understanding fully where Ishvara has to appear, he appears. Therefore, Ishvara's Janma or Ishvara's appearance as Rama, as Krishna, or whatever 10 avatars we know are only the basic superficial ones. Our Vedas say that millions of avatars Ishvara has taken. Why does he take the avatars? What is the reason for the jiva to come back again and again? What is the reason for Ishvara to come back in a body, mind, sense complex? What is the hetu? What is the hetu or karanam? The hetu or the karanam is the unfinished karmas and ignorance of the jiva, which brings the jiva helplessly back into Janma, called body, mind, sense complex. Then what is the hetu of Ishvara to come back to for a certain purpose? Ishvara has to come back again and again in a particular name and form, in a particular body. Why? As a dharma adhyaksha, as a karma adhyaksha. When the situation is completely out of control, when a self-healing system is not able to heal itself, when the dharma is getting completely, fragmented, it is at such time that Ishvara has to come back in a particular name and form. This is called as avataranam or avatara. This is the hetu. Number 2, how is the manifestation happening? The jiva manifests through the intermediate forms of the 5 elements, correct? Maya sees that this jiva becomes a pancha bhautika body, mind, sense complex and is brought into this jagat. Whereas Ishvara is not a pancha bhautika body under the control of Maya. We are the products of Prakriti, whereas Ishvara's avatara is not a product of Prakriti. Let me give an example, a scientific example. Normally, a solid has to be converted into a gas, if you say. The solid has to first get converted into a liquid, and then the liquid has to get converted into a gas. Take ice, water, steam. One example. Fine. And that is what happens to all of us. From the Prakriti, that is the Karana Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, Pancha Bhautika Sukshma Shariram, then again from Sukshma Shariram, a Sthula Shariram, which is the elemental, 5 elements. So our bodies, the Jiva's bodies are Pancha Bhautika, which are created by Maya. Whereas, what is the body or the manifestation of this avatara? The manifestation of avatara is that this Ishvara is not under the spell of Maya. He or Ishvara or that intelligence or Ishvara takes control over Maya and directly appears as a particular body mind sense complex wherever it is necessary, whenever it is necessary. And why does it appear? Why does Ishvara appear as a avatara? It says in the next verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya paritranaya sadhunam. That comes later. But the second difference is the manifestation of an avatara. It is not a panchabhautika body, whereas Jiva is a panchabhautika body. The Jiva is under the strong influence of Prakriti or Maya, whereas Bhagavan, when he takes avatara, is not under the influence of Maya. It is not a typical picture of Panchabhautika body. Then you may ask, how was Krishna born in the same way as every one of us is born in the Garbha of Devaki? How come Rama was born in the Garbha of Kausalya just like all of us were born? Then it is said that at the time of birth of that particular body mind sense complex, Bhagavan, holding the Maya Shakti under his control, appears in that newborn body mind sense complex for a particular purpose. An avatara may appear at a particular time only for one nimitta, like Narasimha appeared suddenly from nowhere for a particular problem, only for a particular karyam of destroying Hiranya Kashipu. Correct? It is a nimitta avatara. Whereas Rama and Krishna were born literally as though all of us are born in a human like body with a name and form. And it was not one nimitta. Their entire lives were multiple nimittas. They are Purna avatars, where their entire lives they did something to fulfill the purpose for which they appeared. Therefore, an avatara number one is a descent, avataranam, keeping the Maya under the control. Ishvara is not subjugated by Maya. And secondly, it is not a Panchabhautika Sharira like a Jiva, and Ishvara appears as and when there is a need for Ishvara to appear in a certain name and form, in a certain type of a body, for the sake of a particular specific purpose which cannot be done by anything else or by any other Jiva. Whereas who am I as a Jiva? I am under the Vasha of Maya. Helplessly I am born because of my ignorance to work out my karmas, and I go through the Karana, Sukshma, Sthula Shariras, and I am a Pancha Bhautika Sharira, totally under the spell of Maya. Now you can ask, how is it that is possible for Bhagavan to appear holding the Maya in his control? Swam Mayam Adhishtaya, Prakritim Adhishtaya. He's going to say that in the next verse. What it means is that there is a process in science called as sublimation. What is sublimation? When a solid is directly converted into a gas without the intermediate stage of a liquid, it is called as sublimation. Whereas we people are solid, liquid, gas, we go through the whole process. Whereas Bhagavan's avatara is what is called as a sublime appearance. It's a sublimation where he uses his prakriti to manifest himself or herself. Ishvara can be it or he or she, anything. There is no gender there for Ishvara. So manifest Ishvara, manifest taking the support, holding the Maya under its control, and fully out of knowledge as to why I have to come. It is an avataranam, it is a descent, it is not a pathanam, it is not a fall. Supposing I want to get into a well to do something with my free will, then it is what? Avataranam into a well. Supposing without my knowledge, without seeing the well, like the olden time wells, I fall into the well without my knowledge, it is what? Patanam. Correct? Okay. Without knowing, without knowledge, without a certain purpose, accidentally I fall, it is a fall. Whereas when I get into the well, knowing fully why I am getting into the well, for what purpose I am getting into the well, and I know how to come out also, it is not patanam, it is avataranam. Therefore, an avatara is an avataranam, and Ishvara again and again, over and over again, in hundreds of forms, millions of forms, appears when there is a need for Ishvara itself to appear in a certain form for the sake of re-establishing the dharma. And Ishvara is a dharma adhyaksha. Normally, he need not come. It is not necessary for Ishvara to appear in some form every day. It is not necessary because this entire jagat, this entire dharma is a self-replenishing system. It is a self-healing system. The entire Prakriti knows how to heal itself. But there are times when the Prakriti is incapable of renewing itself, it's incapable of replenishing itself. Then Ishvara only has to come to establish the order. And that's what he's going to say, that I know all my avatars and I know why I have come, with my own control, with my own free will, with the knowledge, total knowledge. Who is Bhagavan? Samagra Jnanam. Whereas who am I? The Jiva. Arjuna, you are the Jiva. In contrast to me appearing now, you are a Jiva, limited Jiva. You do not know why you have come. You do not know anything because of your buddhi doshas. But I know. And in the next verse he says, Ajopi sannavyayatma bhutanamishvaropi san prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavatmyatma mayaya. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. I appear out of my free will, knowing fully well with full knowledge. Okay, what do? Sambhavami. I appear. I don't fall. I appear. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Taking Maya, my own power. What is Maya? Ishvara Shakti. Ishvara Shakti is called as Maya. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya and Prakritim Mayam Swam Adhishtaya. Holding the Maya, controlling the Maya, taking help of the Maya. I project myself in a particular name and form. In this particular Jagat, Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. And who am I? Aja. I am unborn. I am not subject to birth and death. I am this Bhagwan who is never born, never dead. Ajopi san avyayatma. I am the avyaya atma, not exposed to any kind of vyaya. At the same time, I am neither born nor do I die. So I am this atma who is unborn, non-dying, non-decaying, avyaya. Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. Though I am the very master or Ishvara of the entire Jagat, at times, Arjuna, it is necessary for me to come here to re-establish, do some serious repairs, take care of some serious disorders and put things into order in Prakriti. And Prakritim Swam, my Prakriti, he says, Swam Prakritim Adhishtaya, holding on to that, Sambhavatmi Atma Mayaya. I don't go through all the stages you as a Jiva go through from Prakriti, Karana Sharira, then Sukshma Panchabhutani, then Indriyas are formed, the mind is formed, then there is a Panchikaranam of all the Sukshma Bhutas, and then the elemental body is formed. I don't go through all those processes at all. I appear. Though you may feel that I'm also born along almost contemporary of you, but then I'm really not born. I appear in this particular form. For what purpose do I appear? He says, common. All of us know this verse. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever there is a disturbance serious enough to affect the cosmic health, When the cosmic balance is seriously disturbed and the cosmos is not capable of renewing itself, that is the time I, the Jnana Swarupa, Samagra Jnana Rupi Ishvara, Ajaha, unborn Ishvara, Avyaya Ishvara, I have to come here to take care and put things into order. And I don't come like a jiva, I don't fall like a jiva like you, but I hold on to my Prakriti and make her project me the way I want, in whatever, whichever place, in whatever way, the way, whatever I have to do. Yes, therefore, this entire life of mine, Arjuna, though you may see it as full of many instances, incidents that have happened, this whole thing is my own free will, my own jnanam. I have come here for a particular purpose. And what is that particular purpose for which I have appeared? I will tell you, Arjuna, in the next session. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्था शाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.